Hi, I'm here today with Rachel Ferreira. She's the director, I want to get this right, of the Institute for Women's Leadership at Nichols College. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you coming by and talking about what you do at the Institute and at Nichols College, which is a great institution in the area. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
The Institute was founded in 2013?
That's correct. Our Institute was founded by President Engelmeyer in 2013 and the Board of Trustees. The founding group decided that they wanted to bring attention to issues that face women in the workplace. Nichols is primarily a business school, and we have female graduates going into the workplace, and we wanted to make sure that they were ready, that they had the skills they needed to compete with their male counterparts, to negotiate for their salaries, to handle difficult situations as they arise, and that was what started the Institute. Mm-hmm. And then we've built programming and support for our students from there.
And there's so much involved with that, and I want to get into a little bit about some of your programs and events. One of the events that happens this month, which is all focused on Women's Leadership Month?
Women's History Month.
Women's History Month, is you have an art installation at the school. Tell me a little bit about that and what the idea is.
So the vision really came from a trip we took to the United Nations in the fall, and it was a photo installation showing the experiences refugees had. And I took the idea and I thought, why can't we show gender experiences that our students are experiencing?
Oh, interesting, okay.
And we used a green screen room. We had 50 participants, all with a straight-faced portrait to explain some of their gender experiences. And it really ran the gamut of experiences. We had men and women both participate. The idea was really to show that gender stereotypes impact everyone, and to also reach students who don't normally come to our Institute for Services, to say this is a pro-women's institute, but also a pro-human institute. And we want to work on the wage gap and underrepresentation for everyone. And the installation went out about a week ago, March 1st, and we've received a lot of good feedback about it so far. It's been a really interesting experience to hear what staff, faculty, and students have had to say, and how many people identify with some of the quotes that are on the posters.
You also run a leadership conference, correct? A women's leadership conference in the spring?
Right. This year it's April 4th, 2019.
Oh, super.
We have been hosting our Empowering Women in Business conference for 9 years. And what the goal is to bring women from the surrounding community to campus and to provide a professional development day. We've had a number of outstanding keynote speakers and presenters. This year, Mary Carlo Magno is our keynote speaker, who's a professional organizer, and she focuses on minimalism and how to live with less. She was once in the corporate world, and she took a step back and decided that she wanted to help people, and that a way to do that is to focus on the most important things in life, which is in her books and in her view not necessarily accruing a lot of stuff.
Sure.
So she's going to be there with us to talk about her journey, and then also some of her skills and techniques that she's learned along the way. So we're excited to host her, and then a number of other breakout sessions that include networking for people who don't like networking, how to manage certain financial issues as a woman and a family planner, and a number of other topics.
Oh, interesting. That's establishing priorities for both men and women in life, and work and family balance or work-life balance is so important. So that sounds really interesting. It sounds neat. And networking is a key, as you know, for everybody.
We have done networking socials where we have mocktails and we have students start to practice. How do you approach someone? When do you offer your business card? Things like that. So that is something we've done and tried to focus on. We also have a number of conversations where we bring women from the community who have made an impact to talk to our students about how they got to where they are, how to put yourself out there, how to believe that you can reach these heights. We host a number of conversations about current issues that are happening in our area. So we had a conversation about the Kavanaugh hearings when they were happening. We hosted another conversation around the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault cases when those came out. So we really try to touch all areas, whether it's the current events or professional development for our
Oh,
students.
that's great. And I think it's a wonderful idea to bring successful people, particularly successful women in this case. And there's no better way, I think, to learn but by listening to how somebody else did that, particularly if that ends up being their field of interest. And how do you begin to navigate that, then by listening to somebody who's done it. And you get one good idea out of an event like that, and it's worth a lot. And it's another way of networking.
Right. We have a negotiation workshop that we offer every semester. And the idea is the wage gap is starting for women as soon as they leave college and enter the workforce. So it's negotiating your pay at your first job is what people think is going to start to close that gap. So we focus a lot on confidence. We try to bring women to us who maybe don't feel ready for those conversations, who could use some practice. So we put them in real world scenarios where they're negotiating for a certain pay, and we give their partner, their sort of break-even room where they're allowed to offer. And so we put them in those conversations, and how do they ask politely to be reconsidered? How do they assess their own worth? How do they put themselves in those scenarios to get paid what they deserve? And so it's exciting, and we see a lot of positive results from our negotiation workshops.
It does boggle my mind still that there is such a pronounced gap between what women get paid and what men get paid, and in some ways the gap seems to widen the higher and within a corporate structure people go, and it boggles my mind that here we are today in 2019. That's still an issue. It's still happening, and I don't understand it, but it's just, I'm glad that you and other people are addressing that, and I think addressing it as people get started is a real great beginning.
It's interesting, and the wage gap has a lot of components to it. I think a lot of times it's misunderstood. I think people sort of reject the idea that when a manager is hiring, they just simply say, you're a woman, you deserve this much, and you're a man, you deserve this much. It's really not that simple. I'm sure those things do happen at times, but it's complicated, and it starts at the point that women enter the workforce and start to negotiate for their work. There's been some research showing that women just tend to ask for raises less than men. So a lot of it has to do with putting yourself out there, and then the family piece comes into play. Oftentimes when men have families, it's sort of looked at as, okay, they now need to provide for more. Whereas when women have families, it's the idea, okay, well now they're going to be distracted. And so there's a lot of sort of subtleties with that sort of stage of life that can be complicated. And we see women who step out of the workplace for a while, and then re-entering the workplace can cause problems in terms of getting paid what you deserve. Now that technology is so huge, staying up with technology if women are out of work for a while. So it's a really complicated issue that sometimes is reduced to, okay, well, why can't we just pay everyone the same? Which of course would be great, but there's just sort of some of these subtle reasons why the gap still exists. Sure. And it's slowly moving in the right direction, but slow is...
More slowly than I would have anticipated at this point.
My approach is really to focus on confidence of women and men. And that has been our sort of keyword, or our mission going forward, is taking our students where they are and building upon their confidence levels.
Okay.
So that way, when they are faced with a difficult situation, they believe in their abilities and are able to put themselves out there and solve problems. So that's the core word that I always bring back to make sure that our programming and our ideas and all of those types of things are focused on that issue in particular.
Thank you for coming and sharing this. People who are interested in either the leadership conference or anything else that you have going on should contact you by going to the website?
They can visit our website at nichols.edu/IWL, or they can reach out to me via email.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for coming and sharing all this. This is great to learn about what's going on in the area. And again, it's mind-boggling to me that there's still such a gap in women and men's pay at every level. So I appreciate you talking about that.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here today with Kim Flaherty, and Melissa Stein from Open Circle Acupuncture and Healing in Northborough. Thank you for coming and sharing a little bit. I've been very interested in seeing this. I've experienced acupuncture treatment in the distant past, and there's a big fear, I think, about acupuncture treatment because of needles.
Yes.
And I think it keeps people from even giving it a try. Tell me a little bit about what you do and why somebody would go see an acupuncturist.
So thank you so much for having us. So yes, there's a lot of misconceptions about acupuncture, really because of past experiences that people have had with needles.
Right.
So this is so much different than what they've experienced in the past. In fact, I've given so many people their first treatment, and it rarely ever hurts. So that is definitely a big misconception. We all bring our fear based on past experiences, you know. So the needles are hair thin, and they're placed on different channels or meridians on the body. And one of the reasons that I think people should consider trying it is because of all the health benefits. So even though this is very old science, thousands of years old really, there's a lot of modern research and studies being done on what it does in the body.
Sure.
And so what they're seeing is that the acupuncture treatments help to improve blood flow. That's one of the main things that it does. And so I think of the body as basically as old as its vascular system. And so a lot of the illnesses and traumas that have built up over time start to impede the optimal flow of blood in the body. So if acupuncture can help improve that, then there's just a whole plethora of benefits that can come
And you're
with
going to
that.
show us a little bit of
Yeah, we're going to do a demo
Yeah.
today.
And so long as there's no screaming, people will understand. It really doesn't hurt.
It doesn't.
It
really
doesn't hurt.
Yes.
So you can go ahead and do that.
Okay,
We can
sure.
chat while you do that a little bit.
Sure.
People who want a general sense of health may come to you, but also for specific kinds of health issues, correct?
Yes, we treat a lot of different conditions. We see a lot of pain, stress, anxiety. Those are probably our top three that we treat, but we also treat a lot of digestive issues, sleep. People come to us for fertility support,
Oh, really?
hormone
Okay.
imbalances, a lot of women's health, and of course anything ending in itis because it helps with inflammation and the blood flow. So we
That's
treat.
what I think of, and that's actually the treatment I had was for arthritis, and did that. But I'm surprised at some of the others, anxiety and
Oh yes.
and for fertility issues. I mean, that's I would not have thought, I guess, of course, I don't think a fertility issue for myself anyway, but I would not have ordinarily have thought of that as a reason to go see an acupuncturist.
So the other mechanism is that it stimulates the brain to release endorphins and
Okay.
other pain-relieving chemicals. You know, our body really does create all the natural opioids that it needs to relieve pain. And so if people are in chronic pain, then there's something not working effectively because the body is designed to heal itself. And so if the body isn't healing itself or relieving its own pain through its natural mechanisms, then the acupuncture can help to stimulate those areas of the brain to relieve, sort of the stress, the pain, the endorphin release can, again, trickle down to a lot of different areas. So somebody might be coming for lower back pain and it'll help that, but then they come back and they say, you know what, I feel more relaxed, I'm sleeping better, I just feel calmer. That's a very
Sure,
common thing, and that's because of that endorphin release that happens during acupuncture.
So now, what are we treating here?
So let's see. So this is 2 points that help with the flow of energy through the body. So these channels actually run right up into the neck and shoulders. So if you do we call them a distal point because it's away from an area of pain. So if you think of like the body as a river, maybe there's part of that river that's blocked or not moving well, or even like a kink that's in a hose. So the water won't flow through the hose. If you find the kink, you can open up that flow throughout the entire channel. So if this goes up into the neck and shoulders, where a lot of people have issues, then doing even just this 1 point can get everything moving all the way around. Or even this is also for the sinuses because this channel comes all the way up onto the
That's
the
one
face.
of the things I found fascinating about acupuncture too, that what you just said, that in your hand has something to do with the sinuses.
Yes.
And that, I think that's one of the things that people have a hard time. They're going, okay.
I know.
How
We think of
how?
pain, we should be treating the local area of pain. And if we're not treating that local area, then what could possibly be happening?
Correct.
Totally understand, yeah. So it's similar to how we take an Advil, but we don't, tape it onto our knee. We take it and
That's
it
true.
goes to the brain
Okay.
and it releases those natural pain relieving chemicals, and then it goes where it needs to go. So the acupuncture is similar. It's like these sensory nerves talk to the midbrain, and then the midbrain releases the chemicals needed to reduce inflammation, reduce pain, and it has this intelligence to go where it's needed. If I talk to my Advil and say, listen, my back hurts, go there, right?
Right.
People think I'm crazy. So,
But that's a good way of
It's a good
looking at
analogy.
it,
Yeah.
is that it's just what you said. So if you were taking an aspirin or another pain reliever, you wouldn't think about how it's going to get there. You're just hoping that it's going to get there.
Right.
Where here you've got something specific about the point of entry
Yes.
and what's that supposed to stimulate.
yeah, and we will treat the local area as well, because that has a different way of working. So it's almost like a micro trauma. So if you put a little bit of stimulation on an area, then your brain's like, something's hurt, send in like the immune response to heal it. So the
if-
local treatments work great as
So
well.
if Kim had a problem with her hand, you'd do something a little different.
Sure, I mean, if she had a local problem with her hand, I could certainly treat her hand, but there's just so many different tools in the toolbox, different ways to treat the same thing. So
That's fascinating. It's a whole different way of looking at
it is
medicine.
very
isn't it?
different.
It is
Yes.
very different.
You're not bleeding. There's no pain.
No.
So is
She
it-
didn't scream.
No, you really don't feel the needles when they're inserted.
and that's been my experience too. But you bring you in to see no pain, no bleeding. So
And then
this
you
is
feel
all-
it
and then
even
comes
less on
out.
the way out.
Yeah.
And we put it in the biohazard. They're only used once. There's never any issues with,
And that's important for people to realize too.
safety issues. Yeah, it's very, very safe.
If you get somebody who knows what they're doing, a credible
Very important.
practitioner,
Yes.
then you won't have those kinds of problems. Well, that's great. This could I could have a treatment myself if we had enough time,
Exactly.
but we have to wrap up for today. And I do appreciate coming by and sharing a little bit. Hopefully, people will understand and be able to get over that hesitation.
Yeah.
It's just another way of trying to heal yourself or to
Exactly.
feel better. Period, on a general basis.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Oh, well, thank you for
Yes.
coming, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm here today with Dr. Alyssa Lamoureux from Skin Dermatology in Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Thank you for coming and talking about skin care, some things that are really important for people to think about. One of which is, and I just went through this process with you, is having a skin scan and how important that is. I know my primary care physician had been after me to do this for a while, and I think, well, it's just age spots, and as you get a little older, and not so much the case. And it's really important to preventing some real problems. So, tell me a little about that. How often and should somebody come in to get their skin scanned, and why?
Well, come to find out when we look at the data, skin cancer is actually the most prevalent cancer in the United States. And there are several types of skin cancers. There are common ones and less common ones, and some are very easily treatable, and others can be deadly. So having an annual skin check is something that is really good for anyone to do that either has a history of many moles. Typically the number that they put out in the literature is about 50 or more moles. Somebody with a family history, a first-degree relative that's had a history of skin cancer, be it what we call non-melanoma skin cancer or melanoma skin cancer, which is the most deadly form of skin cancer. We also know statistically that men, in particular, age 50 and greater, are at the highest risk for developing skin cancer. So it's important in that age group. And recently, there has been an increase in young women. Ages 15 to 29 has actually shown that skin cancer is the second most common cancer in that age group as well.
Really?
So there's really a range of ages of people that have either suspicious moles or moles that are of concern, and we have patients sent to us from pediatricians through primary care, doctors that see patients of all ages, because sometimes there just is a mole on the skin that they want us to look at, and we may determine that it does look suspicious and maybe needs sampling, or looks to be something that at this point in time looks okay, but something that we should monitor year to year. So typically most people that don't have things such as a history of skin cancer, we typically see them one time per year to do a head-to-toe skin check. Otherwise, if they do have a history of skin cancer, we may be seeing them more frequently.
Okay, so a person should be starting to see you or somebody, another dermatologist, from what age to how early?
So there's no general consensus actually in terms of what the actual number is for the age that somebody should start being screened. But in terms of the risk factors, like I said, it's having a great number of brown moles on the body, having a history of blistering sunburns, having a family history of somebody having skin cancer that is a first-degree relative to yourself, or like I said, in those age groups where we know that the prevalence of the skin cancer is higher, such as the men age 50 and older, and these young women. It's really just something that I think anyone is really starting as an adult to get into the habit of having the skin check. Otherwise, we definitely can see children as well, because there can be skin cancer even in early ages.
Okay. And how big a factor is, well, being out in the sun has to be a major factor. Hence, women in that age group, I would
Yes.
think, in particular. And men, particularly men who work outside or do a lot of outside activities, that makes a lot of sense to me as well. Am I correct in that assumption that being out in the sun is a major factor? What are there other major factors that contribute to that beyond the sun and family history you've mentioned? So the message again is to use sunscreen, stay out of the sun as much. What do you recommend?
Yes, so sun is the #1 contributor to skin cancer. And we recommend, if you are going to be in the sun, to be there safely. So definitely applying a broad spectrum sunscreen. And that means, broad spectrum means that it prevents against the rays of both the UVA spectrum and the UVB spectrum. We look at those in terms of simplicity in saying that UVB is the rays that burn, and UVA are the rays that age and that contribute to skin cancer. Those are the deeper rays that that can penetrate deeper into the skin. So definitely wearing your broad spectrum sunscreen, applying it about 15 minutes before you go out into the sun, and then reapplying it every 2 hours once you are out there, because it will wear off from either sweat or swimming or brushing up against a towel. And we recommend the number SPF 30 or more. And during the peak hours of the day, say 10 to 2, we recommend that you seek shade, wear sun protective clothing, protect yourself, protect your face with a hat, wear sunglasses, because you can also get melanoma in the eye. So protecting your eyes are important as well as protecting your skin. And you need to think about these things not just when you're out at the beach. You're also going to get sun reflected off of snow, the water. So when you are outside, or even maybe if you're a runner, remembering to put sunscreen on the tops of your ears, places where the back of the neck that go above a t-shirt for men, especially people that work out in the sun. People sometimes are good at putting things on their face, but they forget about those other areas that are being exposed. Even we talk about putting sunscreen on the tops of the hands, because when you're driving in your car, the UVA rays are able to come through the glass.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that, but you're right. Particularly if you're on the road a lot, as in some sort of profession, or just taking a long road trip, or heading to the beach for an hour or two, and your hands are exposed. Your hand gets warm. If you're in the old days, before most cars had air conditioning, you'd have your elbow out the driver's side window and end up with a burn. I burn 10 minutes anyway. So, and a hat is important, I would think, for any of us. And whether you have a lot of hair or not.
Right,
because
exactly.
that doesn't help people. What do you think about, is there any advantage to tanning before you're going on a trip or going out, beginning of the summer? Is there any advantage or disadvantage to going to one of these tanning centers?
So that's definitely the number one no-no that we as dermatologists say to stay away from, tanning beds that produce artificial rays. Getting a tan is actually your body releasing more melanin, which is the pigment making cells in the skin, and that's a protective thing that your skin is actually doing. So any amount of sun that's causing you to change color is actually damaging to your DNA.
Oh, that's interesting. Everybody wants a tan. And I'm the guy at the beach with the hat, the sweatshirt, the jeans on, and looking for a tree.
That's good. Me
so
too.
That's a good thing. All right, that's great. But you hear about getting a tan at a tanning salon first so that you don't burn when you go out. But it's not really all that helpful from the sounds of it.
No, definitely not. And I think that's definitely contributed to the increased incidence of skin cancer and melanoma, because in the 1980s, that's when tanning booths started to become in vogue, and through the 90s where people started to frequent them, and and people now are aging and that were in those many years ago, going in and having sessions at the tanning bed, like you
Sure.
said, before you went on a
Before you
trip,
went on
or
a trip.
things, before somebody went to the prom, they wanted to get a tan. So the debts of the past of going to those tanning beds are now catching up with people.
Well, that's important for people to know.
Yes, definitely.
Well, thank you very much for coming and sharing a lot of good information, and appreciate that. And we'll be back soon.
Great, thank you so much.
Hoping that today we treat everybody we meet with kindness, respect, and tolerance. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.